Hello everyone, my name is Brooke Birnbaum, and today we are going to be making cake mix cookies. This is what they look like when they are all finished.
Hi.
This made 27 of them, but you can see there's a difference in size, so depending on how large you make them will depend on how many cookies you actually get out of this. But it's a pretty simple recipe, and most people really enjoy it. It's super nice because unlike most cookies, it's really hard to accidentally burn these. So let's get started. This is actually pretty simple, and there's very few ingredients that you actually need. One of them is a box of cake mix, and you can choose whatever flavor you would like. I have a carrot cake mix. I actually do not like carrot cake at all, but I have some family and friends who do, and so I'm making it for them. But again, you can use whatever cake mix you would like. You need 1 large egg, so I'm going to be using one of these. And then you need 8 ounces of Cool Whip. The last ingredient that you're going to need is powdered sugar. It calls for between half a cup to 1 cup. It depends on how many of the cookies that you make. Will depend on how much powdered sugar you need. So I'll explain in the video a little bit later how I know how much to dump, and then you can base it off of that, but you are going to need powdered sugar. The first thing you're going to want to do is preheat your oven to 350 degrees. You want to do that first. That way it is ready to go as soon as you are ready for it. You're then going to get a large bowl. So I have my large bowl right here. And I'm going to start with my egg, and I'm going to crack my egg into the bowl. I'm going to crack it on the side of the bowl. Just go like this. You're going to try to make sure no shell gets in. I'm going to take the shell, throw it away, and immediately wash my hands because raw egg is raw, and I don't want to touch anything else. You're then going to quickly scramble the egg. The next step is to add your cake mix. It's a good idea to briefly mix this. It'll make the next step just a little bit easier. It's a good thing I love my family because I don't even think carrot cake smells good. I love carrots, but I'm not a fan of this. The next step is to add the Cool Whip. I'm going to go ahead and use this from the start because I know it's going to be necessary. Just want to get all of it out. If you have a 16-ounce container, you're just going to want to cut it in half. Take out half of it. You're now going to mix this all together. You can do this in one of a few ways. You can try to mix it like this. You could try to put it in a mixing bowl and use an electric mixer. Or you could do it by your hands. I'm just going to do it by hand, just to show you what that looks like. And then you can decide how you want to do it. Keep in mind, Cool Whip is from the freezer. It's very cold. And this gets messy. Just embrace it. This is not fully mixed yet. Once it's all completely mixed, it'll look something like this. This looks a little bit clumpy still because of the pieces of carrot in it. Depending on what kind of cake mix you use will depend on if it looks clumpy at all or not. Your next step is to get parchment paper and your baking sheet. I put my parchment paper on the baking sheet to start. That way I don't have to try to move the parchment paper once the cookies are on here. You're then going to need your powdered sugar or confectioner sugar. It's approximately half a cup to a cup. Kind of depends how you do it. So to be totally honest with you, I'm not even going to measure. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this bowl and I'm just going to dump some in like this. Now, if you've never made this before, I would maybe measure, but the bottom line is you need a decent sized bowl, which again, relation to my hand is that size. And you need it to be pretty full. Your hands need to be clean for this, so if your hands are still dirty from mixing this together, you need to wash your hands. When you do this next step, one hand should stay dirty and one hand should stay clean. Or if you're doing this with a group, somebody should have dirty hands and somebody should have relatively clean hands. What you're going to do is about 2 tablespoons at a time, which is not measured, it's just done by hand. You are going to be grabbing your mixture and you're going to drop it, literally drop it into that. You don't want your fingers touching the powdered sugar. This is your dirty hand and you don't want your dirty hand and this touching. So you're going to drop it in and then you're going to take your clean hand or your powdered sugar hand and you're going to go underneath it and flip it. And then you're going to pick it up and plop it on here. This is what this looks like. You're going to grab a chunk of it. It's super sticky. Your hand's gonna get dirty. You're gonna drop it in, trying to keep it kind of in one spot as best as you can. You're gonna grab the powdered sugar. So again, this hand is out of commission right now. You're not using it. You're gonna grab this and you're gonna flip it over. So there's powdered sugar on every side. Then you're gonna lift it up and you're gonna set it down and repeat. You want them to be about the same size. That's really the only thing that matters. It doesn't really matter what size they are, but they need to be the same size. The bigger you make them, the longer they're gonna take to cook. The smaller, the shorter amount of time. They do spread out a decent amount, so I'd keep them about 4 fingers apart. And it's hard to add more to this later, so like I just realized this is a little bit too small, so I need to grab more and add it now before I put sugar on the other side. So this hand should stay pretty clean because most of it should be covered by powdered sugar. So make sure the powdered sugar stays to where there is an even amount on the bottom where you're not going to get it, where it won't get stuck to the bowl. One thing that I didn't mention at the beginning of the video because I didn't think it made sense with this type of cake mix is that if you have just a really plain cake mix and you want to add chocolate chips or sprinkles into the cookie, you definitely can do that. I would just mix everything together first. So after it's all mixed together, before you add it into the powdered sugar mixture, is when you would want to add the chocolate chips or the sprinkles or whatever you wanted to add into the cake mix. And then you add it to the powdered sugar and then bake them. This is full now. Can't add anything else to it. In hindsight, probably should have made them a little smaller so I could fit 4. Oh well, not a huge deal. These are going to be a little bit larger. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these in the oven and then I'm going to continue making this with other pieces of parchment paper while these are in the oven. They cook for about 10 to 15 minutes. I would start with 10 and check them. The nice thing about these is it's really hard to over bake them where it ends up being too crispy. It takes a lot to like burn them. So gonna start with 10 minutes, check them at 10 minutes. I can put them back in if they need it, but always start with the smallest amount of time on your timer and check it. So this is gonna go in and then I'm gonna grab another piece of parchment paper and continue this. When you put these in the oven, make sure that you're using oven mitts. I'm very big on not wasting anything, and so there's still batter in here, so there's still cookies to make. I should be able to finish this up with this one. Getting down to end is when this gets tricky because you don't want to waste a bunch of extra powdered sugar, but if your cake mix cookie touches the side of the bowl, it's going to end up like this bowl, which is messy. And the goal is to keep this not messy, which is where the powdered sugar comes in. That keeps it from like sticking. So you just got to be mindful about where the powdered sugar is when you set this in. As tempting as it might be for you to lick your fingers, this does have raw egg and I would not suggest it. I am not tempted at all because I really don't care for how this smells. Or tastes for that matter. If there are any spots on your cookies where you can tell, like right here you can tell, you can see it in the video, right here there's an area without any powdered sugar. If you want to go through and if you have extra powdered sugar, just layer it on top, totally fine. I would not suggest rolling these into particular like circles. I would not suggest smashing them down, like I would just leave it. At this point, you're done with powdered sugar, unless you have another use for it. But again, it needs to be cooked. Like, you shouldn't just use this for anything because you just put that raw dough or raw egg in there. This bowl should go in water right away because it is a pain to clean. And the longer it sits without liquid in it, water in it, the harder it is to clean. So I'm going to go move this while my cookies are finishing up cooking. And then I will show you what they look like. Alright, so they just came out of the oven, the first batch of them. You can tell they're done by the way that they break apart. When the inside part of those divots is cooked, they're done. I'm going to let them sit for a minute or two to let them start to cool. Be careful when you're setting down your baking sheet where you're placing it. I have a counter that can handle heat. Many counters cannot, so just be mindful of where you put it. After letting it sit for a minute or two, if you wanted to, you could move them onto a cooling rack. I'm personally not going to do that right now, simply because I don't want to clean the cooling rack, to be totally honest. I'm just not going to do it. So you can move them onto a cooling rack, but if you're going to do that, you should still let them sit like this for a minute or two. I'm going to put in the last batch of cookies and then revisit this in a moment. Something else that's good to note is the parchment paper is not hot. Doesn't get hot in the oven, so like you can touch this fully as soon as it comes out of the oven. The pan, however, is very hot, so if you go like this and touch like anywhere here, that's going to hurt. because the pan underneath is hot. Parchment paper itself, not hot. So if you wanted to take this and slide it off, which is what I'm going to do, you absolutely can do that without a problem. Just make sure you're not touching the pan as you're doing it. Alright, I'm going to turn these, move them to the side a little bit to make room for my next batch. Just waiting on one more. Again, parchment paper is not hot. Pan, very hot. As you can see, even though I did not particularly try to make them into perfect circles, a lot of them do come out circular just with the way that they bake. These cookies are great because they don't get super hard, even if you leave them in longer. If you don't add enough powdered sugar, they will stick. So these peeled off super easily because I had powdered sugar surrounding them. If you don't have powdered sugar surrounding them, it's going to be very difficult to get them off the parchment paper. Despite the fact that it is parchment paper, it still makes it a lot harder when there isn't powdered sugar to keep them from sticking. They make great ice cream sandwich cookies, so I'm going to demonstrate that in a moment. Alright, so we're going to grab the last ones out of the oven. There's a pretty large size difference between when I started and when I ended, but again, it doesn't matter as long as they're all on separate pans. So it would make a big difference if this cookie, which I'm not sure if you can fully see, this cookie, the cookies that I made first, if they were on the same pan as this cookie, that would be a problem because they're not going to cook at the same time. But having a pan of smaller ones and a pan of larger ones is totally fine. This ended up making 27. It's a good amount of cookies, and you can decide how many you really want it to make based on how large you decide to make them. That being said, I hope you enjoy them as much as I have enjoyed making them for you. Alright, so this is the ice cream that I have. I'm going to get my ice cream scoop hot just to make it easier to scoop the ice cream. And then I'm going to flip this upside down, flip the other one upside down so it's ready to stack on top of it. You want to just make sure that you have two cookies that are basically the same size. Try to make it even with my hands before I put the other cookie on top. Then I'm going to take this one, try to evenly push down on it without breaking either cookie. And there you have it. An ice cream sandwich. I'm going to wrap this and put it in the freezer so I can enjoy it at a later time, or let's be honest, I'm not going to enjoy this at a later time, but I'll give it to my mom. She will enjoy it at a later time. I don't enjoy this type of cookie, but this makes a great ice cream sandwich. So this stays very soft and is malleable so that you can get the ice cream in there and really smash it down so it actually is like a sandwich. Any ice cream works, and then if you wanted to with your ice cream sandwich, you could pick it up and roll it sideways in like sprinkles or chocolate chips or something if you wanted to make it a little bit more decorative. But like I said, I'm just gonna put this in here and wrap it up and set it in the freezer. To be totally honest with you, I have no idea how long this will last in the freezer and still be good. Not sure, but time will tell. That being said, I hope you enjoy them as much as I have enjoyed making them for you.